Hello, my name is Ashley, also known as Cupie83 on YouTube. I do YouTube videos on all sorts of dolls. Me and my mom have been collaborating since 2012, if you can believe it, on YouTube, doing video reviews, haul videos, convention coverage. It's been quite fun so far, and we hope to continue for years to come. But today I'm here to present to all of you at the virtual doll convention Better Together a fun presentation that I'm going to do here on Skipper. So Skipper dolls are like my collection focus. They're like my collection passion. I started collecting Skippers as like a young teenager when I was like, well, if I'm going to collect something, I want to collect something that isn't like so insane that I'll never feel like I even, completed 1% of it. I wanted something I could kind of feel like I had a good amount of, that I could complete theoretically. It's never gonna happen, but theoretically I could if I really tried. So I landed on Skipper as opposed to collecting the whole of Barbie. I decided Skipper was good. I had a passion for Skipper because in the 90s when I grew up, I'm one of those like born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s kinds of girls. When I was growing up, Skipper was still a really big, prominent part of the Barbie line, and she looked very specific. She had cool, like anime, like large, cartoonish sort of eyes, and she was the same age as me, which is what a lot of people say when they collect. They're like, oh, well, I collect this because it connected with me, when I was a kid or whatever, and that's kind of how it was with Skipper. So as a teenager, I was like, oh, I'm going to collect Skipper. And I have since then added quite a few dolls to my collection. Today, with the theme of Better Together, I was like, well, if I'm going to talk about Skipper dolls, and the theme is Better Together, I might as well talk about Skipper and all of her friends. People do presentations on her family, like the Barbie family, that sort of thing. You can see that, I'm sure, on the internet. And you can, I'm sure, see something like this on the internet. But I thought it's less covered, so I wanted to introduce you, hopefully, to some of Skipper's friends through the years, and maybe even encourage you or, get you started on searching for them on eBay, adding them to your collection, all that good stuff. So, this is Skipper. For anyone that doesn't know, Skipper is Barbie's little sister. She was introduced in 1964, which is crazy because it seems to me that she'd be turning 60 in 2024. So hopefully there's some celebration for that. Fingers crossed. If Bill Greening or any of the designers are listening, we need a 60th anniversary Skipper. This particular Skipper I just got at the National Barbie Convention, so I was like, I need to include her in the presentation. She's a beautiful color magic. She's a straight leg Skipper, and I was like, I need a vintage Skipper to show, and this was the one. So this is Skipper, like I said, 1964. She was released as a straight leg Skipper like this. You can also find her with bendable legs. So this was the original kind of look for the Skipper line. So you can see the size here, and kind of the very sort of like innocent sort of look that Skipper has going for her. In 1964, Skipper was basically released kind of like in partnership with Barbie, so like there would be like sister factions, that sort of thing, but she didn't have any friends. So in 1965, Mattel decided to fix that, and they introduced two friends who were actually around for quite some time. In 1965, Mattel introduced Ricky. Ricky's kind of like the boy next door. He actually uses the same body as Skipper does. He just has a unique head mold, as you see here, and he was actually out till 1967. He came in tan and pink skin. There were outfits made specifically for Ricky. This is one of those outfits, and he made quite an impression, I feel like. The next friend they introduced is actually Scooter. Now I have three different versions of Scooter here. Whoops, her hat is falling. We're gonna leave that off. Scooter came out at the same time as Ricky, so they kind of came out together. So in 1965 she had tan skin. In 1966 they started making her with the pink skin tone. You'll see her in bendable leg as well as straight leg. For whatever reason, don't have a lot of bendable legs, but this is a bendable leg and these are both straight legs. She has 3 different hair colors, as you will see here. We have the red, we have the brunette, and we have the blonde. And I read on the internet that she was actually sold in Germany until 1971, so she was discontinued here in 1967. But for years to come, they were producing her in Germany, which makes some sense because even dolls like Tootie and Todd, they made over in Europe far longer than they made here. So with Ricky and Scooter, they kind of disappeared in 1967 for the most part here in the States. And it wouldn't be until 1970 until Skipper, poor little Skipper here, would get new friends. Up until then, poor Skipper had no more friends. There's a theme in her friendships where they're very short. So she had these guys maybe, well, they aren't the longest, but she had them for a good chunk of time. But you'll see as we go into the 70s and the 80s, she has very short-lived friendships. So we're moving into the 70s now. This is Living Skipper. You may already know her. She has a living body, so it's very bendy. She has a fun, new, posable look to her. Living Skipper is one of my favorites. This is a light blonde Living Skipper. Another one that I just picked up, so I was like, I'm gonna put you in the presentation. But she's just a really cute Skipper doll. And she came out in, I believe in 1970. But she, of course, needed some friends. It had been a long time since Ricky and Scooter disappeared. That was 1967. We're now in 1970. So Mattel decided to introduce her friend Fluff. This is Fluff. Fluff is on a living body, just like Skipper is, all bendy and flexible. The thing with Fluffs, as well as Living Skippers, as I'm testing it out now, their joints can sometimes melt together. So like this arm is moving freely and this arm is not, because this one tends to melt. So if you do decide to look some of these up after the show, definitely if you're looking at the living line or the pose and play line, just, double check to make sure all the joints work. And if they don't, apparently you can leave them in the sun for a while, or you can just use like an X-Acto knife to kind of cut away some of the melted bits. But this is Fluff. She actually comes with a skateboard too, so she can kind of be very actiony. You can bend her front leg, you can make her do cool tricks, all that stuff. But she, even though she's so adorable, right, has a unique head mold, she was only a friend for a year. So this poor girl lost her friendship with Fluff after a year. Interesting thing about Fluff though is that there was also a playset made, or not a playset, but a gift set called the Sunshine Special Gift Set. It's really hard to find. It's really rare. If you can find it, that's awesome. And sometimes you can find just the pieces of it, which is cool. But she was part of a gift set as well. And she shared clothing, of course, with Skipper. But, as I said, she was only made in 1971. But Mattel have this unique head mold, right? So what are they going to do with it? They're going to change the lineup just a little bit and introduce us to Pose and Play Skipper. So this is Pose and Play Skipper. She has a really cool bendy body. This one was one of my mintiest girls here. She came out of a baggie. She was in the bag when I bought her, but I was not going to let her live in the bag, so I took her out. But she is an adorable Skipper, so if you've never heard about her or looked her up, you definitely should, because they're so cute. So she came out in 1972, and along with her came her new best friend. This one is her tomboy best friend. Fluff, I guess, was too glamorous for Pose and Play, so this is Tomboy Tiff. Tiff is was also released in 1972. She's very hard to find. In fact, as I said, I just went to the National Barbie Convention, and there wasn't like a single one in the room, and I was all set to go there and spend my money on a Tiff. I couldn't find one, which still makes me sad. But I have one which I'm 100% grateful for. I was just looking to add another. But this is Tiff. She was out in 1972. This is not her original outfit. She wore like jeans and like a white top, and there were like decals on it that said stop, help, go. She also came with a skateboard that was red. It might be the same style skateboard, but she was very much the tomboy friend, the friend who you can go and run around town with and get dirty with and just explore with. An interesting thing about Tiff is, as I mentioned, she shares the same head mold as Fluff. So if you can see here, it took me way too long to realize this. The main difference with these two dolls is kind of like the makeup, like the lip color is a little different, but the main difference is the hair. So Tiff has this straight brown hair and Fluff has this like yellow golden hair, and the lashes. Fluff has rooted lashes, whereas Tiff does not. But otherwise, they're the same head mold. So it's kind of interesting that they were used 2 years in a row for different friends. And they both look so unique, which I think is great because, like I said, it took me way too long to realize that like Glamorous Fluff was, you know, the same head mold as Tiff, the tomboy. But it is really, really cute. So if you ever really, really want a Tiff and you need to oak one up, buy a Fluff head, take out the rooted lashes, and then you can just reroot her with this sort of hair, and you kind of have a Tiff. So there's that. So we're jumping to 1976 now, and we have Growing Up Skipper here. Now, Growing Up Skipper is one that everyone talks about. Personally, I think she's overhyped a little bit, but because of her gimmick, people tend to remember her. And, you know, some of it I think is just people rewriting history, because I can't really find many articles or anything saying that people didn't like this doll, which is why it was pulled, but because of this gimmick, Growing Up Skipper is like one of those dolls people talk about all the time. Forgive me, her hair is quite wild. They came with different hair lengths with Growing Up Skipper. So this I think is the long-haired version, and then I also have the short-haired version, but this was the closest one to reach out of my shelf, and it at the moment is really wild. So Growing Up Skipper, her gimmick is that she goes from like a child to a young adult. So she basically grows a chest. And you'll see, and she grows in height. So if I move her arm, you'll see she kind of like has more of a chest here, kind of. But she also grew, her torso grew. And that was what she did. And for whatever reason, people did not like it, apparently. So in 1976, Mattel introduced not only Growing Up Skipper, but Growing Up Ginger. This is Ginger's first and only appearance in the Barbie doll line. You will see she has the same sort of gimmick, so if I twist her arm, she will go from being, you know, this young adult to a child and back again. Ginger is actually very pretty in terms of this face mold. I'm not crazy about this face mold. I think it's cute. It's fine. There are worse Skipper face molds. To me, it's just a little small. Like, it's just a little tiny. So I'm going to put Skipper down here and just talk a little bit about Ginger. She has brown eyes. Her hair is typically just pulled back. And she and Growing Up Skipper had different fashions that were made just for this line. It's cool because the fashions include a version that's for the child like Skipper or Ginger, and then the young adult Skipper or Ginger. She is kind of harder to find. I have two, and I'm happy with it. This one is my mintiest girl. My other one is kind of like a Franken Ginger, because I bought her on eBay, and like her face was sewn together, which they did not disclose when I bought her. And then this one fell into my lap too. But this one is really pretty, and they only released her in 1976 for this Growing Up Skipper line. So we are now in the 1980s. This is Super Teen Skipper. Not my favorite face mold, so I only have a few of them. But I'm putting her in this presentation because of her companion. So in 1980 was introduced her first ever boyfriend, and her boyfriend is Scott. Scott is another one people talk about a lot because, I mean, he exudes 1980. Like, he fits perfectly with this particular Skipper who was supposed to be very action oriented. I'm gonna put her down, and let's talk about Scott here. So he has this very poofy afro. He has an interesting head of hair. And he has this bent arm and this straight arm. He's wearing roller skates. He has his like athletic wear on. He looks like he should be going to like Xanadu to go and like roller skate or something. But this is Scott. I don't know. I mean, he's not particularly my taste, but this Skipper thought he was cool enough to be her boyfriend. And I do know that there are lots of people that adore Scott because they remember this. They remember this time, and Scott was around when they were the perfect age to, you know, buy him and play with him and have their you know, Skipper and Scott go on fun dates and that sort of thing. Interestingly about him, he's on an Osmond body, which is why he has this bent arm. They just repurposed it. This should have been like a microphone hand, which is why it's kind of rounded. But this should have been a microphone holding hand, but they repurposed it as like an action pose, and had him like be very athletic. I don't know. You can see Scott. He has tiny blue eyes, interesting face. As far as I know, they never used his face mold again. So towards the late 80s, Skipper got a facelift. So in 1989, we had this adorable anime eye Skipper here. This is the one that I grew up with. This is the one that is most influential on me and my collecting. This is what I think of when I think of Skipper. This is why I collect her. I love this particular version of Skipper. So this is what we had in 1989 when she was reintroduced, and she was actually reintroduced with two friends. We're gonna go to Courtney first. This is Courtney. Courtney had actually quite a long history with the line. She was actually used not only for this face sculpt, but two others as far as the character. But you'll see they totally fit together, and much like Scott kind of exuded 1980, these guys shout the 90s with their hair and their fashions and the colors. I just love this era of Skipper, and I wish it was easier to find and more affordable, but I love it. So I'm gonna put this Skipper to the side here. So this version of Courtney was actually in 7 different lines from like 1989 to 1996. She's just so cute. I love her brown hair, I love her brown eyes, and with the 90s line, unlike today and unlike previous lines, every doll kind of looked different. They had different hair, sometimes they had different eye colors. It's really fascinating kind of studying this particular era in Skipper. I don't think it gets as much attention as it should. So it's definitely interesting, and if you're at all interested in, you know, this kind of vibe that Skipper has going on during the 90s, you should definitely look into it more. So this is one of the Courtneys. I pulled some other ones just so you could kind of see what I was talking about. This is totally hair Courtney. She was an exclusive to like Toys R Us, I think. And then this is another one here. So you will see they're all kind of different. These two are my childhood dolls, so their hair is not perfect, but they're just adorable. And I love Courtney. She's very Italian looking. Like my family, you know, I'm Italian and Sicilian, and like I have a lot of like Italian looking dolls. So brown hair, brown eyes, like darker sort of features. And I feel like Courtney, she has some Italian in her. So these are 3 of the Courtneys that were released between 89 and 96. So in 1995, Skipper went from looking like this to looking like this. And they kind of just made her more like a young adult, whereas this is kind of more of a preteen Skipper. They aged her up a little bit, but not too drastically. Her face is just more, you know, narrow. Her features are smaller. She looks a little older. And Courtney survived the line. So they also made a version of Courtney that fits this aesthetic more. So I'm gonna put Skipper to the side. This is Phone Fun Courtney. you'll see that they did make her features a little less large. So her eyes are smaller, her face is a little different. So you'll see there is a difference. She definitely looks like an older version of this Courtney. So that is a change that they made with her. But I think she's so cute in both forms. There is another friend I wanted to talk about who came out alongside these two, though. And they fit together so well. So this is Kevin. Kevin also was out from 1990 to 1995, so they were kind of like a trio. Kevin was Skipper's second boyfriend. She went from Scott, roller skating, afro, to this guy who definitely looks like he stepped out of a boy band, which is very 90s. They made 6 versions of Kevin, and he also had fashions. They weren't the coolest fashions, because personally, I don't think Mattel can design really cool male fashions. Some of them are very strange looking, and unfortunately Kevin's fashions fall in the strange looking category. But he had a fashion line which not all the male characters can say. So this is one of the Kevins. You'll see he has brown hair. The interesting thing with Kevin is that they made him go from being brunette to blonde. And sometimes he has highlights in his hair, sometimes he doesn't. So it's kind of interesting. So this is the 2 versions of Kevin. As I said, there are 6 dolls on the line. He was in Cool Tops. There's one just called Kevin, Pet Pals, Basketball Kevin, Cool Crimp Kevin, and Pizza Party Kevin. Much like Courtney kind of got a facelift towards the end of the line, in 1995, they wanted to keep Kevin around, so he was in the Pizza Party line, which launched the brand new face that you see with Phone Fun here. And you'll see, this is kind of what they did to him. He has the same like basic face mold, but they kind of made his features smaller. So if you ever see a Kevin and you're like, well, he looks kind of different from all the rest, he might be just from that 1995 line, where they tried to make him more mature looking. So you can kind of see a difference, I think. But he definitely fits this Skipper more than the others. So now we are in 1997. Mattel had made the decision to age Skipper up. So she went from looking like this, well, this is the Courtney version, but you kind of get the gist, to like this. So this is one of the Teen Skippers. I don't have many in my collection. It's a portion that I really have to start working on to get more, because she does have a really pretty face. And I do like some of the ones that they released over the years that they made her. And she, one interesting thing about this line actually, is that up until now, Skipper did not have a black friend. So you've seen all the friends come through, and so far in the Skipper line, all they had released had been black Skippers. So the same version of like this Skipper, but with the black skin tone. So they had not yet released a friend. This line changed that with Nikki. So this is Nikki. She is Skipper's friend, because that's the topic for today. And she was in 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, I want to say. I don't have very many of the Teen Skippers, as I said, but this is one of them. She also has a very pretty face. I think this is like the introduction doll, where it was like Teen Skipper Nikki, and I don't remember which this one is. This might be Teen Skipper Skipper. As you see, she's kind of Barbie's height here, but very, very fun. I think Nikki is a really cool friend. Along with Nikki was another Courtney, and they gave Courtney this like really red hair. Like she was very much ginger and not the brunette that she was in previous lines. I don't have one. I don't have one to show you. So all my pictures are going to be from the internet, because I, for whatever reason, between 1997 and 2001, when these dolls were released, I never received one and I never bought them. And then last but not least, this Skipper, for the Totally Yo-Yo line, was going to have a boyfriend. His name was going to be Zach. He is in promotional material. He was never released. So I'm putting him in here as the 3rd boyfriend, who unfortunately we never saw outside of like a single photo. Interestingly enough, because he had a unique face mold, they repurposed the face, put it on a more adult body, and they named it Generation Girl Blaine. So if you have Generation Girl Blaine, you kind of have some of the proposed boyfriend for Skipper in the Teen Skipper line. I think it'd be really cool if someone got a Blaine, took the face off, repainted it to look like the promotional material, found a good body that kind of fit the more teenage look, and started making those, because I think that would be really cool to see Zach in person, even if it's an oak toy. And that's it. Those are Skipper's friends throughout the Skipper line. I know that there's like the babysitter line they're doing right now, but since none of those dolls have actual names, I don't include them as Skipper's friends. If you look at the box, it doesn't give a name, it doesn't give a relationship, and with all these other dolls I just showed you, we know their name, we know that they're Skipper's friend, or Skipper's tomboy friend, or Skipper's boyfriend. They actually had a backstory, whereas the new characters, they don't have any sort of backstory, so they're far less important to me as a collector of Skipper. But that's all of Skipper's friends through 1964 to 2001. And I'm hoping that, you know, when we see another revamp of the Skipper line, which I hope is soon, that, you know, they'll maybe bring in some of the things that made the past line special. So bring in some of the uniqueness of the 1990s line, some of the fun of the line, bring in some of the cool fashions of the Teen Skipper line, bring in some of just the well-made bodies and the well-painted heads from like the vintage line onward. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and learned something new. I hope maybe I introduced you to a Skipper friend or two you might want to add to your collection. Someone wrote recently to me that doll collectors are nothing but enablers, and I feel like that's kind of fun. Like, I love personally introducing people to new things in the doll world, even if it's a doll from 1990 or from 1964 you may not have known about. So I really hope I inspired you to, you know, add to your collection or to look into Skipper and her history a little bit more. You can always find me at Cupie83 on Instagram. I try to post. I'm not always good at posting, but the place you'll find me most often is on YouTube at Cupie83. You can also see me in some videos on my mom's channel at Barbie0913. I have a blog, which I'm trying to keep up as best I can with an almost 1-year-old. So please subscribe to that, because I have not forgotten it. It's just very hard to blog when you have you know, a tiny baby now walking around the house. So definitely find me there. You can also like my Facebook page here, Confessions of a Doll Collector's Daughter. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them. I hope you feel inspired after this to look up more about Skipper's history, because it's really fascinating sometimes, and there are just so many adorable dolls out there for you to add to your collection. So yeah. Thank you very much to Rachel for inviting me and my mom again, and we will hopefully talk to you soon. Bye!